Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Apparent Voice. Um, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us another Tuesday as we go into another conversation based on what community is asking about. I am Bernita Bradley, your host, and today I have Keisha Gray and I have Lakeisha Conley who will be joining us talking about homeschooling. So forgive me if you hear all these noises, but we have a power outage here, and so I'm literally sitting in my car with my phone being charged right now. Keisha does have power back, so she doesn't live far from me, so I'm hoping to retain my power soon. Also, just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing right now. What we're doing right now is not homeschooling. Everybody keeps calling it homeschooling. What we are doing is pandemic schooling. Like we are doing this traumatic schooling experiment on our children, and most children are feeling it right along with the parents. Most parents have made the several attempts, like every single week, to make sure that our children are learning to the best of their ability. But what I wanted to do is, a lot of parents are saying that I think I want to homeschool from now on because they're seeing the lack of support that they're getting from educators and from schools, and they're seeing how disrupted education is looking for children right now. So they are literally saying, I think I may opt out next year for homeschooling. I am all for whatever choices family choose for education, but it would behoove me not to bring on some of the good experts that I know in my community who does homeschooling well to talk about the difference between what we're doing now and what real homeschooling can look like. Having success stories about homeschooling is very key and essential for families and for parents right now, because what I don't want them to think is that homeschooling looks anything like what we're doing right now, because it does not look like that. This is not homeschooling. This is this emergency, like we're learning as we go type of pandemic thing, right? That everybody's going through, right? And so I don't want anybody to feel like you're less of a parent if you're not getting it, or you're more of a parent if you feel like you got it like down pat. Kudos to you. But for parents like me who have contemplated homeschooling several times, my daughter has asked several times over the course of years, right? But the fear of homeschooling was, will my daughter retain what she's learning? Now I'm even considering possibly moving to homeschooling. So without further ado, I would love to bring on Keisha Gray and Lakeisha Conley to join us, and hope you enjoy the show. Keisha and Lakeisha, hi, how are you? Can you guys hear me? Oh,
Here I
really?
am. I can hear you.
Okay, forgive me. Okay, so it seems like it's a little bit of a delay. But so how are you today, Keisha?
I'm doing well, and thank you for sort
Can you hear her, Lakeisha?
yeah. Thank you for giving me that backdrop into pandemic schooling versus homeschooling. Can you hear me?
I can,
Hello?
but it's kind of going in and out. Lakeisha, you can hear her?
Can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead. I can hear you now.
Yeah. So I think it's very, very important to factor that in. I don't think that pandemic schooling is worse than homeschooling. I think it is making a shift, like we're having to shift along with our behavior and social distancing to figuring out what's next. And I think we're in a really, really great place to make some real shifts. Like when I hear you
Mm,
contemplating the possibility of homeschooling, I think the pandemic has opened up opportunities to either lean into the challenge or and to also figure out what's next for our families. We were kind of on a hamster wheel there with school, and I would add to your conversation around pandemic schooling that for many of the students in the city of Detroit, our educational system was a pandemic already. It was in a bad state of affairs,
yeah.
right? So, and we knew that. we were hobbling along. We were a lot of times in denial about how bad it was. And so this sort of gave everybody, like President Obama said, it pulled back the, the screen on what's really going on. So I think that's an important conversation.
Right. I like that you say that. Like, we've already had pandemic schooling. Like, in our Black children, brown and Black children have suffered, like, the education systems that have failed them over and over. And we've just been, like you said, hobbling along, right? We've been going with the flow. And I don't mean in a sense like we've been satisfied with it, but I think this is a perfect opportunity for parents to either do two things: advocate for what they need or take their children out, bottom line. Like, they need our babies at this point more than we need them from the experiences we've had.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's
Lakeisha,
always been the thing.
Oh, yeah, always. So Lakeisha, what's your take on it?
You have to unmute.
Can you hear Keisha?
No, she has to unmute.
And
there she is. I can
you
hear
me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've been having several of my friends call me like, I don't know how you do this. Oh my goodness, this is hard, and really stressing out over this new schooling that they have to do. This is what you go through every day. And so I just said I wanted to post something on Facebook to possibly do a Zoom to kind of let people know this is not how I've been doing this for over 20 years. So like how you said, don't beat yourself up, because I don't know if I could do this pandemic crisis schooling, dealing with the teachers, dealing with the students, dealing with what some of the parents had to come home to work from home. And I've had several different jobs where I've worked from home and still homeschooled. But the biggest thing that I think is that the difference between this, what I call crisis schooling versus the homeschooling is I knew I was going to do it. I was prepared to do it. I wasn't just thrown into something. It was a passion, a desire that I've already had. And so I think it was easier for me to make the transition to teach my kids, as opposed to I'm being forced to do it while being nervous about this pandemic, while dealing with working from home, a lot of changes at one time. And I think that the thing that I've been advising my friends to do is just to step back. Trust me, if they missed 2 or 3 months of school, it would not kill them. They would be fine. But I personally think that they need to step back and don't be so anxious to get everything done. Like a lot of parents are panicking. Will they finish the 3rd grade? And it doesn't, I believe that they can still do great and still, but with a little preparedness. Like, I want the parents to make an informed decision. Do I want to do this homeschooling? And if so, maybe prepare themselves over the summer. I say that, like, I've homeschooled other people's kids, and I think one of the biggest things is I couldn't get anything done until I got a relationship and got discipline taken care of. If you, as a parent, tell your child to bring me your notebook, and you have to say that 5 to 10 times, you're not going to be effective in crisis schooling or homeschooling or whatever you want to call it. And it's going to be stressful. You have to get some discipline and get a good relationship with your kid. If you haven't had that in years, it's time to get it over the summer. It's time to really sit down and tell your children what to expect and start living up to that. Not that people haven't been doing that, but a lot of people in my generation, in my culture, they don't really have a good relationship discipline-wise with their children, which means you're not going to be able to teach them academics if you can't teach them how to follow directions. I don't know if it's making sense. And it's not
so when we talk about discipline, though, we're talking about the discipline in like what they want to learn too, right? The individuality, because it's not the typical discipline of I need you to walk down a straight line.
Right.
You know, school is like
Right.
robotic. School
Right.
is that walk this straight line.
Right. No, my thing is, if your children, I'm just going to say it, I hope it doesn't sound cruel, but if your children do not respect you as authority, then you're not going to get very far. I think that the children need to respect you. They need to understand that. And like, I guess like for me, and I don't have all the answers, but I'm just saying what worked for me is when they were very, very tiny, I established that you need to listen and obey mommy for safety, for one, for safety reasons. And for two, when you have multiple children, you don't have a lot of time to keep reinforcing certain things. You need to do what you're asked to do so that we can move on. I don't know if it's making sense, but I don't want to sound like
So I get where you're coming from, but the question I want to kind of like divert to is, where does the children's interest come in with that discipline, right?
Yes.
Because that's priority, because I think they get a lot of
Absolutely.
discipline stuff in school, right?
Right.
And sometimes that can be misconstrued, because right now we have parents at home who are feeling like, sit down, keep this schedule. I need you to do, the teacher said that you got this handout. I need you to turn it in. And now we're becoming like this whip and lash for our kids.
Right.
And that's not real homeschooling.
No, not at all.
Keisha? Like, what's that makes a child even want to be like in tune with a program and stick to it? Because I remember once before you said something about your baby, like making a decision about, I think it was her math class, that she was like, I'm out. I done checked out on this math class.
So I think the difference between Lakeisha and I is Lakeisha's on the, how old are your little ones, Lakeisha?
Now they're bigger, but now I don't have to worry about discipline. But what I'm referring to is I'm in a total agreement with all interests, for the children. But I'm speaking of the people that I've been around. A lot of them is more like they have no discipline for the children and no kind of way. So how can you get anything done, even their own interests? You still have to teach children self-discipline.
I think it's really important to establish early on that we're not learning to get the golden carrot. Learning isn't about what is the reward. I think learning really is about developing a sense of self-interest, because I think once a kid figures that out, like my daughter is really, whatever she's passionate about, as a parent, I've gone down the rabbit holes with them. But I think part of it is also as a parent allowing your children to, and I know people are going to cringe at this, to fail, to have disappointment.
Amen.
So there was a point in my daughter is a high school senior this year. She's graduating. And there was a point where, maybe she was staying up late and she couldn't get up to get to do something she wanted to do, and she overslept. You know what? That's a natural consequence. So when I think about discipline, I think mostly about self-discipline. I think it's really important when your children are at home during this pandemic time. I would encourage parents. I would talk to them about sort of allowing your kids to find their rhythm, because so much of their rhythm has been pre-dictated by schools. You know what time is lunch. You know what time is recess. You know what time is this. And so I gave a workshop last week on the Three Little Pigs. And I love the story. I love the story told by the wolf. But the story of the Three Little Pigs is really about, when the pandemic started, we were really building a house out of straw. We were pulling our kids out of school. We were bringing them home. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just throwing a house together. And now I would say that for most families, we're in the stick house phase. When I say the stick house, things don't feel as anxious as they did when you were told your kids aren't going to be in school. They feel a little bit more stable. And perhaps as a being at home, you've gotten into a rhythm. Your kids know that when they get up, they got to brush their teeth at a certain time. Whatever your routine is at home, you're getting into some sort of rhythm. It feels better. you know that you can't do this forever, but you got something going on and it's working for you. What we're really trying to get to as families is the brick house phase. And the brick house takes a lot of heavy lifting. It means that you got to engage your community, because you can't build a brick house by yourself. You have to engage your kids. You have to say, hey, you got to help me lift these bricks. Maybe the schools won't reopen. Maybe they will. But even with the knowledge, we know that we're going to have to build a house that is structured with their input, your input, their interest, your discipline, their discipline. And that can't involve the sort of harshness that a school brings to it. Because once your children tune into that, and you know, we spend a lot of time at home doing all the non-academic things. We cook a lot around here. Cooking is math. We eat a lot around here. We talk a lot about current events. We were just talking about what happened with George Floyd today. You know, we talk about these things because those things are all education. Education, learning is happening everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
And so I'm suggesting that parents prepare themselves to build that brick house, so that, you know, when kids get back to school, they won't be so shaken, and we won't be pushed and pulled in these directions. And when the big wolf, the superintendent, comes down and says some things, you know what you're standing on because you're in a brick house.
Yeah.
You know,
right now in that stick house, it can still be blown down, and parents are just relaxing because they're like, summertime is here, and I ain't gotta worry about these lessons back. But you got to realize, like, this pandemic is not 60 days, right? It's been proven that it possibly could last a year through next year. And so some of us in some communities like Detroit, we're actually about to be forced homeschooled in whatever way it's going to look like, right? Even if it's students are going to school 3 days a week and then home 2 days a week, or vice versa. We're about to be forced homeschooled. So this is the perfect time to take advantage of that. And
well,
I want you
to look at your language too, Bernita. When you say forced homeschool, I want you as a parent, like, we're going to have to make some really strong choices. There are some parents who won't send their kids back to school, whether the school is open or not. I know I'd be one of them. I'd be kind of scared. Like, we don't know enough. So we're not forced anything. We're constantly, and our kids need to understand their power and our power in this. We have power in this situation. They could open all the schools tomorrow. And if they did, how many of us would say, oh yeah, we're going in there. We see the leadership. We'd probably say no. So we're not forced. They can't make us do anything. We're making choices.
Right.
And your children are making choices. Right. So I want to encourage parents with that too, because it shouldn't be about your fear.
Maybe you can choose to be in that.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think you're a bit frozen there.
Yeah. Okay. So
there you are.
So I really want to go into one person who's not on the call. So this beautiful being that you have named Z, right? For those who don't know, Keisha has this daughter and son, but Z and I have kind of like connected on a couple of times, a couple of different levels. And this baby has traveled the world, basically homeschooling. And she's just like the ideal, to me. You went on mute.
Oh, I'm here. I was trying to see if I could get her in. If I could get her in here.
Oh, is she home? Tell her do like this. Tell her Bernita said, please, just for like 5 minutes. So this person has just graduated from school, and I say person because I don't even know what to call her. Like, she is a world within herself. And hello, dear.
Hi.
Hi.
She looks just like you too.
Thank you.
Yes, she does.
She is.
So when I say this baby, go ahead.
What's her name?
Go ahead.
Zoena.
What is it?
Zoena.
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 So I guess. Thank you. I guess. Wait, don't leave. One of the conversations. Give us 5 minutes of your time. So one of the conversations as we talk about education is that I really can't speak for her on this. You know, I would ask you to direct the questions about her homeschooling directly to her. And she's going to give us about 5 minutes of her time. So it's you.
Thank you. So Z, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
It's weird being home because you are normally like, where were you when the pandemic happened? Where were you?
I was in New York.
My baby was there too.
So this is a high school senior who has, name the places you've been. I don't want to even speak for you, right? Where have you been?
So I started off in Wisconsin, then I went to Maine, Napa Valley, then New York, and during the summer I went to Minnesota, like different places in Minnesota and different places in Wisconsin.
Wow. You were in a conservatory. It's how do you pronounce the school you were in?
It was called Conserve.
Okay, Conserve. And so how did, some parents may have the fear, like, how do my kids interact with other kids? I'm a homeschooler, right? That's the one fear, right? Lakeisha, one fear. So how did you interact with other kids, Z?
I don't think there's really much of a difference from like going like homeschooling because you still have friends and stuff.
Right.
It's not like you're like just isolated. So like just like making sure you're doing stuff with other people. But I would say that's like not just for homeschoolers. That's like for any kid.
Hi.
She's graduating too this year. Look, I'm showing her your baby. See that one right there? She's graduating this year too. Oh, congrats.
So do you have 5 minutes for us? What's your name?
I'm Carrington.
Hi, Carrington. How are you? You got 5 minutes for us?
Oh. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
that's her least favorite question. She hates when people say, "So how do you meet friends?"
Yeah.
Look, that's why I called her.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
So what kind of places where have you been for homeschooling?
Well, I've joined a lot of different co-ops, and I've been on, many sports teams and like different activities, hobbies that I've tried. I've traveled a lot with ice skating. That's actually what I do. I'm a figure skater. And so, so I figure skate. Actually, that's being a homeschooler has helped a lot with that because it's very time consuming. So, being flexible with homeschooling has helped. Yeah, and I sing a lot. So I have a lot of outlets for making friends. So it's not just like we're sheltered in the house all the time.
Right. Look at her. Yeah. Tell her your name again.
I'm Zuena.
Zuena. Isn't she pretty? Yeah. You look just like your mom.
And see, this is what I want people to see. Like, we see this vision of homeschooling as this place where our kids
like
are
they're
just in the house all day, and then sometimes we take them out, and they're these awkward kids who don't want to do anything with the rest of the world. Like, no, they are having ball.
I think I'm the most active out of all of my friends, and they go to school, so I think I do more than they do.
And she's number 3. This is the 3rd one that's graduating. We still have 2 more to go.
Yeah.
But this one, she's supposed to be finished in a few weeks. But yeah.
So we finished up last week, and I think one of the things that's been amazing about Zuena going away is that she now has 100 friends in all these different places. I was amazed. Like, we went to California, and I was concerned. I was like thinking about, where can I find a hotel when we get out there? She's like, don't worry, I've got friends in California. Oh, you do? So just to be able to have a community that around the globe with friends. She got a letter from France last week from a friend. I think kids need a college experience earlier. They need to be able to spread their wings earlier in the process than we are allowing them to. By the time they get to that developmental stage, it's late. Like their ideas are fixed. I don't know if she would have taken this risk to go away to 4 different states. If she was 20, she might be like, nervous, apprehensive. She did it young, and now it's like set the stage for her.
Look, woman, how do you spell your name?
ZWENA.
Okay, so now I can. Okay, good. Well, that's cool. That's awesome.
So I tried the homeschool thing like for a couple of months, like really about a month last year with Victoria when we went on my residency in Ohio. So she was away from school, but I felt like it was an epic fail on my behalf. She finished strong, right? But I felt like I didn't connect her to things properly before because we had a plan. We had like a little bit of a plan, like she would go to the dance group in Ohio and she would get a job that she wanted to get and little things that she wanted to do, right, to make sure it was beneficial for her. But what I want to know from the mom, how do you set up paths for them to start this, right? Because I know now they're at a place where they figure it out themselves. They find stuff themselves because they're used to it. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
She said, "Thank you, Carrington."
The world right now.
That was so nice to have them on.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. But I want to know, how did you initiate these paths for them, right? How did you find these places? Because I want to know this for Victoria. For her last year, I'm literally thinking about letting my baby travel and me traveling with her and doing some stuff. So that's homeschooling for her.
So I think the interest drives it's a chicken and egg situation. So if there's an interest, then you start to you see the interest and then you start to build around that. So when Zoena was at her first, she went to conserve. She was interested in environmentalism. That was huge for her. And then she never thought about doing art. Then she went to Maine and she took one art class. She had one piece of art that she sent to Oxbow. And all of a sudden, that was the piece of art that got her into that school. The interest was what drove the choices that we made versus us making choices and then trying to develop an interest. And she got totally into her art after that. She's been really good with that. When she got to Maine was probably the most challenging of her experiences. She had a school, the school there had a leader by the name of Susan Feibelman. And Susan was very honest school leader. And she was like, trust me when I tell you, my baby's a bright baby. However, she had some gaps in things like her organization. And as a parent, I was like, what do you mean she doesn't? It was a tough situation, but she came out better. I see a lot of what she learned in each experience showing up as a cumulative thing. And I think she's been better for it. So I would encourage you to talk to your child, find out what are kind of things that, even if there's small interests, to pursue them. If she's interested in cooking, maybe there's a class in Tanzania that she wants to take, and you find a connection there. Maybe, and nothing is too off of the books.
Right.
What the challenge for us is that my husband is not as open about it as I am. So he's always the scared one. He's like, she's going where?
Yeah, that's right. I can relate to that too, because my firstborn is, people would always say, you shelter him, you have him closed in. This is back when homeschooling was still taboo. You homeschool him, and this kid goes everywhere. He's been to different countries, but now he's, he just graduated from MSU. And the thing that I think helped him was when he found something he was interested in, we always told him, don't let opportunities pass you up. Take opportunities. If you think that, it just sticks with him. Just during his quarantine, he wanted to learn how to, not hem his pants, tailor his clothes, because he's really, really tall. And so he wanted to figure out how. Well, we have a sewing machine, and I tried to teach him the class. No, he went off to himself, found out how to do it, and passed me up. So it's like, once you teach them to just get it, just go for it. Don't be afraid. Like sometimes, like what you were saying, Keisha, about being in school, sometimes you can get stifled. Like you're so used to doing this. At 3 o'clock, the bell rings and that's it. Or at 2 o'clock, it's this way and it's that way all the time. Well, it's plenty of days when we just stop. We don't do any so-called academics. and we just, if you're interested in learning this, this is what we're about to learn.
Right, and I think it's a natural thing. It comes to them. Once you light that fire for them, they move through life like that. They move through with this sort of, it's not about, because that's the other thing. Grades, like the fact that you're being graded and assessed all the time, stifles your ability to just really,
I think so,
be wild with it. Like,
I think so.
My daughter always asks the question of herself, what will I do with this one wild life? She that's a quote. And she has it hanging on her wall. What will I do with this one wild life? And that is the big question. You have the whole world. And really, schools are there to tame our children, really tame them and cage them.
Especially boys.
Especially boys. You know, and so we have to think about ways that allow them to question the world around them, to question themselves, to ask themselves, why am I afraid of trying this new thing? Having those conversations. And we need to be okay with the decisions they make.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow. So I guess this will be my last question. We got probably about 6 minutes. How do you tie it to education, right? Not tie it to education, because it's all education. How do you tie it to the state standards to make sure when your child graduates? I know that's the piece that like a lot of parents are asking, because they're like, it'll be one thing like for me to say my child can learn whatever they're gonna learn, right? But how am I tying this to something that comes back as a completed diploma, that a college, if they decide to go to college or whatever, sees as beneficial, right?
Right. Well,
you want to take that first, and then I go with it?
Well, I don't know if mine, it just worked 3 times so far. So I've never done grades up until high school. And I only did the grades for transcript purposes and things like that. I've always done narratives. Like I just kept checklists and things. But as far as grades, I didn't keep them until I had to high school. And I use a checklist. If they learn it in March, they learn it in March. If they learn it in April or May, I don't have a certain time limit. And in Michigan, you just have to teach those 4 things. Math, you have to teach a math, you have to teach a language arts, social studies, and science. And whatever that, they don't tell you which ones you have to do. So you can do it, like for me, I don't know if we're going to speak to people with multiple children, but for me, I've always gone from the oldest kid. Like if we're studying American history, then everybody is studying American history. And then the next year we go by the oldest kid. So like we don't go by 10th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, like public schools do. We go by the oldest kid when it comes to the
Wow, so your 3rd grader is learning 10th grade English.
Well, mine was only
10th grade world history.
No, what
but I
mine
mean,
was,
if there's a household that has that breakdown, they could do that, right? Then
yeah, you can.
I mean, there was a 13-year-old who's graduating. Oh, I wish I knew what magazine it was today on Facebook. A 13-year-old who's graduating with 2 associate's degrees from high school, and he's graduating from high school, but he already has 2 associate's degrees. And I'm like,
yeah,
what are we doing?
Like,
well, because those structures are something else. Like, so if your child had enough knowledge, they technically could go in and take the GED written exam and graduate. Like, I mean, anybody can take the GED exam and pass it. They have the knowledge to do that. Right. We have the length of time we have because we are doing this timetable, which really doesn't fit every child. I will say for, in terms of college entrances, number one, I tell my kids to use all the tools in your toolkit, all your tools. So one of the things that my children have the benefit of is they have dual citizenship. That's in their toolkit. I'm Canadian, so my husband is American. So we knew that we didn't want them to go to schools where they would amass a lot of student loan debt. My son's tuition is $2,800 a year. So he's in school in Canada. Right. And then secondly, for Zawena, she started to think about, do I want to attend a school that requires me to have these ACT and SATs? What she found in her research was that schools that required strict admissions through testing had a higher rates of mental illness and kids having breakdowns.
Wow.
So when she started to apply to schools, she decided, even though she had taken the ACT, she'd done very well in them. She said, I want to go to school where they don't require those tests because my values are not in line with standardized tests, even in post-secondary situations.
Yeah.
So she only applied to colleges where they didn't want those things. And you're seeing in California now that they're doing away with SAT and ACT and those types of requirements.
Yeah, we're here in Michigan. We were just on a call today. So there's 14 schools here that have done away with SAT and for this year, right?
Yeah.
And they're thinking about doing away with it. So you can do away with it. Like, do away with it, period.
And because our kids, we're in a situation where homeschooling is so widely done.
Yeah.
More schools are actually looking at homeschool kids because they come to the work with freedom of expression. They're thinking about themselves. They understand how they have a metacognition about the way that they learn. They understand the ways that they learn. So Zawena will attend the University of Alberta in January. First, she'll do a gap semester. The plan was for her to go to Patagonia, Chile, backpacking and climbing, training in Colorado and Utah, but she won't go to Chile because of the pandemic, but she'll still go there. And then in the fall, she'll move to Alberta to study environmental engineering. That school does not require testing, and it's cheaper. And so for room and board and everything might be about $6,000, $7,000. I can do that. I can live with that.
Yeah.
And people are $6,000-$7,000 in debt every semester.
Right. Like I taught my kids, no, we don't do that.
We don't do that.
But on the I guess my last thing to say about the schooling part is don't stress out about it. And as far as academics, I would say that we did do some formal teaching. So I don't want to get it misunderstood. Like we just let our children do whatever, you just sit around and just learn whatever you want to learn. We do have foundational learning. Like the kids do learn academics, just like, comparable to public school kids. But that only, if you're at home, it only takes us about 2 hours.
Absolutely.
And technically, that's what they're saying school only takes anyway. It only takes longer because there's so many kids in the classroom, right?
Well, and it only takes longer because your job is from 9 to 5 and they need a place for your kids to be while you're working a job for them.
Yeah, so it's not like we have to sit at the table for 8 hours going over. And I'm not in agreement with the way we're talking about this pandemic schooling where they're on the computer from the time they wake up to like later on in the daytime and just
that's not homeschooling. That is not homeschooling.
No.
And that's the main reason why I wanted to have this show, because that is not
right. Because I know a lot of my friends who are dealing with this right now, they're constantly shooting papers through this document. What is it called? It's on the tip of my tongue. Emailing papers and back to the teacher
Google
and on the Google Docs and all of that. And that's not, because a lot of them are not really getting it. They're just finishing it for that day. I need to hurry to get this finished. I need to hurry to get this finished, but it's not sticking. So I would not suggest any parent to spend 8 and 9 hours on the computer struggling to get some work done for the teacher and then walk away stressed out and you still didn't really get anything done.
Absolutely. So, and I think there has to be a fire there. Zawena she finished her final paper for high school. And I asked her today, what is she doing? She said, you know what? I decided to take that paper and develop it into a book. I'm writing my first book. That to me says you're thinking beyond a paper that I have to give to a school or teacher. I'm thinking about the fact that I love this work so much that I want to build it out. She said she pulled out a letter that Kwame Kilpatrick had written to Trump and compared it to a letter that somebody wrote in 1864 asking Lincoln for their freedom. And she's putting those pieces of work. When I hear that, I'm thinking, look at this synthesis. I didn't have to stay on top of her to do that.
Right. That is an intrinsically valuable experience. Like that's coming from inside. That's an intrinsically valuable experience.
Wow.
Right there. Right?
So let me ask y'all. So I'm about to ask y'all to do this.
I can't really hear.
Right. So is there an opportunity for this to be a platform? Can you hear me?
No, say it again.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an opportunity. I'm about to ask, can we do this again? I'm willing to open this platform, and there's other people who have shows on National Parent Union. I would love to invite you guys to be a guest on one of the shows, because this is not just a Detroit thing or a Michigan thing. This is all over, right? And but what I would want to do is bring you on with some more parents who are thinking about homeschooling, and let you just have at it and just have a powwow with them and instruct them. Like, this is two things, and I'm going to tell Keisha again, like, this is an opportunity for that consulting business, because school is a business. And if you're doing it and you're doing it well, if you're homeschooling well, you're homeschooling better than these four-wall buildings are doing whatever they're doing, right? And so this is an opportunity for you to help families who might want to step over into this life and say, yeah, I'm done with traditional education facilities, right? And I call them facilities because they are not like they facilities. They just housing kids, a lot of them, right?
I would say
and
this.
So I would love to go ahead.
I'm not a homeschooler. I'm a parent who facilitates learning with my child. Like I just really guide. I'm just a guide. I'm a guide, right? I'm a guide for the things that my child is passionate about. So I wouldn't even, I don't think I'm an educator as much as I'm a parent. What does it mean to show up as a parent? It means to provide the resources for your child to have the best opportunities for them to grow and develop. Like, to me, that's what education is. That's what education was meant to be, and we lost sight of that. So really, the lens shift is in not even calling it homeschooling. You're parenting, and what does it mean? I'm going to support my child in direction that they want to go, and I'm going to sit with them when they've had a misstep, and I'm going to coach them through that. And I think if more parents saw it that way, they wouldn't even call it homeschooling. You're really parenting.
Instead of bringing the school home.
Exactly. Thank you, Lakeisha.
Because I always tell my friends that
Wow.
all good parents homeschool, because you're teaching your children all along anyway. You probably supplement by sending your kid to public school or virtual school or whatever, but all good parents homeschool, or, in the sense that we look at homeschooling, teaching your children at home, because a lot of people feel bad, like, they think that homeschoolers are judgmental, or we're looking down because you're not homeschooling your children. But all parents, all good parents, are homeschooling in some way. You're just sending your children for different supplements.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think of the ways, like, my kids are really good bakers. I never taught baking to my kids, but I bake. Right. I never taught them that. I never went into the kitchen and showed them how to measure flour, but they watched me do it. Kids are picking up all the time. So if you position yourself to be the best human being you can be, you watch your child. Like, I'm telling you, Bernita, like, Victoria is watching you do this. You're really modeling for her what it means to show up in the world and create spaces for other parents, other families. That's true. And you would be blown back to see how she's going to show up in the world. You don't have to teach that. You just got to show up. Trust me when I tell you. When we're talking about Victoria and the work she's doing in community 10 years from now, I never want you to question where she learned that, because you taught her without teaching her.
I believe that. That's true.
Okay, ladies. So look, I'm going to invite you back, and even if it's just a pre-recorded show, I'm going to corral some parents. I'm going to get some parents for us. And I thank you. Like, I think this is one of my most exciting shows that I've had. Like, I don't know, like, we could probably go on for hours and hours talking about this, because it's so needed and it's so informative. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to send you an email soon about next steps. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm excited. I'm excited. Thank you again, Lakeisha. You don't even know me, and we just met and you were like happy to be on the show.
Yeah,
so
I think I've met Keisha before though. I've met you somewhere else. Maybe it was on another platform, but it seemed like I've seen your name.
You probably have. She's done a million things.
Is she? Because I'm telling you, I've seen her name and her face somewhere.
I'm a baker, I'm a podcaster, and I'm a parent.
I've seen you, and I'm so glad that you guys had me come on, and I just had a great day.
Yeah, this is really good.
Thank y'all.
Okay.
So I'm gonna sign us off real quick before I run into the producers' times and stuff like that. Thank you all for joining the Aparent Voice. This has been one of the most exciting shows I've had. Please tune in. Please look out for Keisha Gray and Lakeisha Conley. Please go and like them on social media. Like Z. And when you see Z's page, you're gonna be like, this human being has been everywhere.
Awesome.
It's wonderful, awesome experience. And so I thank you for joining us on the Aparent Voice. This is Bernita Bradley and my beautiful guests, Lakeisha and Keisha, today, talking about not homeschooling, talking about parent educating, or whatever we want to title this. But it's about to be a lot of this going on. And we're about to have a lot of kids who are happy about what we're designing for children and families in mind. And thank you again. Please join me Friday for Friday's show at 4 o'clock. And I love you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.